Hello, my name is Kelly Williams, and today I'm going to talk about how to create an elk habitat model in ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is the newest Esri, application that they've come out with, and they're very much pushing us to begin using it now because it looks like in the next few years desktop might not be around and it is no longer going to be supported, so we might as well dive in now. Alright, when you first open Pro, this is what you're going to see. If you have projects built already, then you can open up one of those, or if you want, on the right side, you'll just click blank. And here we go with a blank map, which obviously has nothing in it. And for me, when I first started this was the most frightening page ever. But we will begin with the Insert tab is open, and this is where you're going to start a new map. So we're going to actually add a new base map by leaving this tab open and going to the far left that says New Map. Click that, and it'll bring in a regular topo. And here we go. This is a world map, so you'll probably have to zoom into the area you're interested in or your project will be in to get to where I'm at now. Now we're going to begin to add some data, and you'll add this from this map tab that's open right here, where it says Add Data. You can navigate to wherever you have the files you need. I found for doing things like this, one of the hardest things is to find the correct data and get it into the format you need it in, and that's the most important part. Because if the data is not good or if it's not what you're looking for, it will fail. The model won't work. Or it will give you bad information, and that's almost worse. You can see here that I have added it's actually NRAC and the West Virginia DNR's West Virginia terrestrial habitat. This was found at the WVU Tech Center website. Really what's very important with this, also then I've added the National Elevation Data Set from 2002. Something that's very important when you do things like this is to actually you need to sit down and figure out the questions you want answered because you're going to match the data to that. For this itself, basically what I'm looking for, I want to know, being an elk habitat model, I need to know what they like. I want to know what kind of areas they like to live in, what they eat, how they act, what we're looking for. We want something, we don't want many people around. We want, as far as from major roads at least, there's roads everywhere, so it won't work with no roads. But you want to be as far away from major interstates, especially. You're going to be traveling faster on those, and that will be the worst impact. So you want to find the set of questions when you do any kind of model for you to answer, and then go out and find the data that you know you'll be able to manipulate to get the answers you're looking for. Here on top, I've added the interstate highways because next we're going to actually add a 10-mile buffer around these. I figured 10 miles is good. An elk's going to travel where an elk's going to travel, and we're not going to be able to do anything about that, but they really don't want to be around things like that. So we're going to use a 10-mile buffer for this project. And to the right of this slide, I'm opened up a geoprocessing tool called Buffer. I found it under the Analysis tab. And then you go in and tell it what layers you want. You set your variables. We've set it at a linear 10 miles. You can do it by meters. You can do it by inches, whatever you need for what you're trying to do. And at the bottom, I did a dissolve because it will give each little piece a different buffer. But for what we're looking for, we just really want to know how far away from the interstates they need to be. And here we go. There's all the major interstates in West Virginia with a 10-mile buffer dissolved around it. We'll use this later on to determine the area. So after you finish this step, you can go ahead and turn this layer off if you'd like. Next, we're going to actually open up Model Builder, and I'm going to do exactly what I've done here, but in Model Builder. So in the end, you can run the entire model at one time and get all the information out. These are things that take practice and it takes time, and really, they often fail to begin with. There might be one small thing that doesn't quite work out, so don't get frustrated with it. Just jump in there. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work, and you figure out what's wrong and make it work. So All right, now for this, I actually went to the Analysis tab and clicked on Model Builder. And then this page opened up in a separate window. This works a little bit differently than it did in just the Arc desktop. So what I ended up having to do was drag in from my table of contents the layer I wanted to use, and then I went to the geoprocessing tools, searched for the buffer, which is exactly what we did in the last slide, and then you'll open up the buffer and answer the questions and set the same things I had set on the other page in here, so this can all run at one time, which will also connect to the model. All right, the next part I'm going to do in Model Builder is we're going to reclassify the elevation data set. Really, in our habitat, elk will be fine anywhere. They lived, the eastern elk were here for till the 1870s, I believe, when we killed the last one off. But they'll be fine. They have different habitats they like when they're in the Rockies and much higher mountains. But for us, it'll be fine. But just to do it, to add it to the model for what we're doing, I'm going to set this reclassify. All I want out of this is the information in the raster. That will be from 100 meters or feet, depending on how your data is set up, to 1,000. So in the reclassify box in here, that's what I'm going to set. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is the exact same reclassification on the West Virginia terrestrial habitat layer. There were about 25 different classes in this layer, and we don't need all that. Certain things in certain areas the elk won't like. They like their grazers. They don't go deep in the forest as far as we know, at least this species of elk. So we're looking for about 5. I saddled it down to 5 classes. We've got river floodplains, heath and grass barrens, which they really like nice open areas with some woodlands on the outskirts. So we have dry forests, woodlands, and glades. The heath and grass barrens, pine, oak, rocky woodlands, and the anthropogenic scrublands and grasslands, which are basically, a lot of them would probably be the reclaimed surface mines in southern West Virginia, or West Virginia period. But there are not only some of the decisions you make sometimes for things like this, especially if you're working it for the DNR, some of it will be political. So just because you have the perfect habitat doesn't mean the people that live there will want them around. So that's also something you do have to take into consideration. But we've now got this down to 5 different areas, which we'll pull out to see where they're going to be, where they'll probably most likely thrive. So this is what our model looks like so far. I've got the habitat layer in the end, and now I'm going to go back to the geoprocessing tools and use raster calculator to calculate and kind of merge some of these outputs together to get really the answers in the areas we're looking for. Now for this part, I actually went back in and found a tool to turn the polygon that I created earlier, the buffer, into a raster instead of a vector. If you don't know what that means, yeah, I guess we can look it up later, but that's where you're getting more into GIS. You'll understand it a little bit better. But for the workflow, since everything else we're doing is in a raster format, if we want to merge any of these, we need them all to be in the same format. So I'm going to turn that buffer into a raster. And here I have up a raster calculator. Here I'm going to basically put together the 5 classes in raster calculator along with the elevation from 100 to 1,000. So we can pull out of the map and out of the rasters just those areas that match that criteria. All right, here is set everything we need. The model looks good. I've added this extra raster calculator here. I'm going to continue on a couple more slides, but it turns out I really didn't need that. But that's what happens, and that's what you find out when you do these things. And here we are, would be the final model that I'm just about to run. I've got 2 more slides that show you as it's running. Like I said, the last one wasn't needed, but when you get bad data, you exclude it, but you have to be able to recognize it. All right, so we started to run the model, and actually the little red box that you see in red in the back shows you the step it's working on right now. This is the beginning. sometimes takes a lot. I have seen gigantic models with big loops, and it can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days. It depends on the size, the depth, and everything you have in it. For this, I didn't want to get too complicated. And here is the end of the raster calculator that ran through all of our model builder and all of our data. Now, this is the elevation data set, and the white you see in the Ridge and Valley area of West Virginia, I basically excluded everything over 1,000 feet, and I changed those values in the raster to no data, which means it's going to come up blank and empty, and you're not going to see anything. It's actually not white. There's nothing there. Intentionally, we want to take that out of our calculations. Here is that elevation data set. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of difficult, but it's in a dark orange at underneath, I guess in this southern West Virginia bottom part, you can see that area right there. And there's the buffer. So we can look at this and kind of see where it's going to be a good area for them. And here finally is the orange are the areas that are best fit for what we're looking for. Now, the colors that look a little reddish, but I made them a little bit translucent so you can see through them, but these are actually the areas the DNR ended up using. As I said before, sometimes it's all about the habitat. Sometimes it's political. So, and when you're talking about big swaths of land like this, people own it. And so they had to do a lot of working to get either the mine that might have been there, if they are the surface owners, or the people, a person themselves, to get them to donate that land to the state so they can use it for habitat. I think there was a good marrying of this when they finally made the last decisions. But this, I feel like this model ran pretty well and kind of shows you, especially in the center ones, because that is area they say is perfect for them, and there they are. These will be the initial places that they let the elk out. And December 5th, they very well could be here by now. So I think that's pretty interesting, and I'm very happy to have been able to be a part of this. Although this habitat model, the giant when they ran, was 11 years ago. This was just the first step into planning this. But since then, they have worked towards it, and hopefully it's be a very good success for this state. So I hope you guys have learned stuff. I hope I helped, and I hope I didn't go too fast. But anybody, feel free to contact me about any information or any help you might want. I'll be more than happy to help. Have a great day, guys. Bye.